We really wanted to make sure we walk the talk and we take that consumer approach of saying we need to also, I mean, we're talking about food and ag many years, many COPs, but what about the food that's being served at the COP? So we actually took that step to train chefs, suppliers, catering companies. A month before COP happened, we did a 4-day workshop, and the chefs were so surprised to know that their decisions have a huge impact on climate change. They were not aware of this. And this is, as I said, just the beginning. And we made sure that here at COP28, there is climate-conscious food. I know a lot of the vegans and vegetarians out there are very happy because I think 60% of the food is plant-based here. I know a lot of my team members who are not necessarily vegetarians, but for them, it was an eye-opener to see how good plant-based food also tastes. But as you know, we have the bigger issue that Secretary Vilsack and I always think about day on day. As population is rising, will we have enough food? Will we have enough protein for all? So that's why technologies and innovations are so good. We need to look at a lot of the alternatives as well, alternatives that are more sustainable, that don't need so much water, that don't need so much land, that don't throw out any methane emissions. And that's why things like alternative proteins are very important, and getting consumer awareness around portion size, about what they're actually eating, about making sure they're not throwing anything away, all comes into the consumer behavior. Because as much as we do on the supply side, the demand side is actually so strong as well. And that's where each and every one of us has a role to play. So you can say, yeah, the governments are doing stuff, the private sector are doing stuff, but what are you doing? And I think you've seen all the little questions and highlights around COP28, just reminding us why we're here and how every action we're taking, every choice we make is impacting the climate.
And one of the ways we can tie together the food loss and waste with the delicious food that's been here, I love how, Your Excellency, you and the team thought through the food, but all the way through to the cutlery. And how, maybe you want to tell this story as well, because it's a waste reduction innovation solution.
Yes, so you'll see some of the cutlery is actually made from palm tree waste leaves. So when the palm tree finishes its life, a lot of the waste used to just be thrown away in landfills, but there's now new innovations to actually take those dry palm tree leaves and actually make them into cutlery. So, and it's biodegradable, and every country has their own, of course, landscape waste. But again, this is part of our circular economy pushes and innovations that we're bringing forward. And of course, highlighting to the world what can be done.
Yeah, and this aha moment that we all have this incredible role to play through the choices that we make, acknowledging the cultural nuance to food choice is incredibly important. But if I come back then just quickly to the role of innovation, aim for scale, which I think is just such an exciting next step here. Let's talk about, you've got the leaders here in the room and behind everyone who's here. Secretary Vilsack, let me come to you. What's needed in the next 2 years? If we think about this run through to COP30 and beyond, how do we continue to amplify the remarkable accomplishments of Aim for Climate, leverage the power of Aim for Scale, and we'll turn to you then after for even more on that. What do you want everyone to look to for the next 2 years?
Well, I think it's summed up in one word: more. We need more innovation. We need more investment. We need more acceleration of the investment and the innovation. We need more communication. We need more collaboration. We need more creativity. We need more commitment. So I think it really is a continuation of building and continuing the momentum and building the momentum and expanding the universe of those who are engaged and involved, so that it becomes an absolute essential necessity, not would like to, you know, a good thing to do or would be nice to do, but it becomes a necessity to do, and that people understand the urgency of the moment that we're now in.
And this is the critical next few years. We have a lot of challenges in the global food system, a lot of weather pattern changes that are going to be affecting things. even more dramatically than what we've seen so far. You said at the beginning that you would never have bet on the scale of what has been delivered here. But if you had a challenge to set out that could deliver it, is there something you would say?
That's simple. In my view, next year, I'll be disappointed if we don't get to 1,000 partners. I'll be disappointed if we're not at 25 billion. And I would be very disappointed if we weren't significantly north of 125 sprints.
All right, we've heard it here.
The new targets.
We know what our work is, that's right. So
Staff has just now gone.
well, speaking as one of your many core partners here in the room, you've got a lot of people here to show up for that.
Yeah, those were just my thoughts. I realize that my partner may have different.
I'm totally with you. I'm totally with you.
So, Your Excellency, what would you lay out for the next 2 years? What are you looking for?
So I would like us to also showcase more the impact on people. I think with the innovation sprints, we've got the partners now on board, the money starting to flow, the projects now starting, and it would be great to have success stories actually come up and talk about how Aim4C empowered them to do so. I'm also hoping to see, again, like Secretary Vilsack said, more. There's still, even though we're talking about 17 billion, it's still not enough. When you look at what we've leveraged over the few days here from the 83 billion, 3.1 billion has been dedicated to food. That's still very little compared to the bigger picture. And we know the bigger picture currently in the world today when you look at food and ag. So that's why I can totally put my foot down and say, yes, more on partners, more on innovations, more on investments. And I think the next 2 years will be about scaling up, and it will be about showing the impact on the people and showing the impact on some of the smallholder farmers. I think that would be huge.
Your Excellency, thank you so much for bringing it back to the people, to the farmers, to the producers, to the fishers, where we keep our central focus while driving the innovation, the solutions, the technologies, and the scale. We've got examples absolutely across the food system. We're all here to show up and make sure these next 2 years deliver some of those even bigger numbers. There's a lot to do, and you've spoken to the urgency. I'd like to thank you both for your incredible leadership and the tone that you've set, for the ambition that you set, and for making this COP a truly historic moment for what we can look for in food. Thank you.
Excellencies, thank you for giving us so much time, going into detail about the platform. Diane, thank you for your moderation, for guiding us through that first session. As we transition, just 2 notes from me. First, you heard Her Excellency talk about the food here at COP. Just a quick plug that after this session, there will be an event in the Green Zone entitled The Food We Ate at COP, where you can hear directly from some of the chefs that were consulted and involved in some of the design thinking that went in to be able to bring the delivery of this landmark approach and make it real. So the other point I wanted to raise, there was a lot of discussion around scaling, how scaling should work, how we could use the platform to scale. As we transition, speaking of scaling, I'm pleased to introduce a key thinker and advocate for innovation in agriculture and in scaling. Please welcome the 2019 Economics Nobel Laureate and Chair of the Innovation Commission for Climate Change, Food Security, and Agriculture, and key Aim4C partner, Dr. Michael Kremer.
Thanks so much, Chris. Smallholder farmers, particularly in low-income countries, are among those most vulnerable to climate change And at the same time, agriculture is responsible for 1/4 to 1/3 of global emissions. Multiple innovations can help boost the resilience of farmers and food systems, reduce agricultural emissions, or both. The Innovation Commission for Climate Change, Food Security, and Agriculture is working with partners to identify innovations with rigorous evidence of impact and of cost effectiveness, and develop concrete actions to transition these to scale. We're working with partners, including the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the COP presidency, Germany's GIZ, India's Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare, and farmers' cooperatives in Kenya. Last week, Minister Al-Mary and Bill Gates announced the creation of Aim for Scale, which will work to transition food systems innovations to scale. I'm very pleased that the work of the Innovation Commission has informed the COP presidency's selection of 7 priority innovation areas and will inform the design of Aim for Scale. I'll briefly discuss a few examples of innovations that the Innovation Commission has identified. First, climate change makes it harder for farmers to plan based on traditional weather patterns. However, vastly more accurate and timely weather forecasts are now available. For example, the timing of monsoon onset is critical for farmers' planting decisions in much of Asia. In many cases, monsoon onset can now be predicted a month in advance. Procuring regional forecasts of the onset of the Asian monsoon and similar weather systems in Africa, covering 12 countries with roughly 300 million farming families, is estimated to cost only $23 million. There's strong evidence that farmers adapt agricultural practices in response to accurate forecasts. Estimated gains for just one type of forecast in India alone are in the billions of dollars. We don't have estimates for all 12 countries, but I'm quite confident that the benefits would be more than 100 times the costs. Another example, timely, customized digital agricultural extension services delivered directly to farmers' phones provide a low-cost way to help farmers become more resilient to the changes in weather, pests, soil salinity, soil chemistry more generally, that accompany climate change. New climate-resilient crop varieties, such as those developed by CGIAR, could bring more benefits to farmers and be more likely to be adopted if promotion efforts can be targeted to farmers who need those crops based on local conditions. Digital agricultural extension can help enable this. Millions of farmers are already benefiting from the digital agricultural extension programs launched by governments, often working with technical partners to use principles of human-centered design and A/B testing to make messages relevant, accessible, and useful for farmers. These efforts should be expanded to reach hundreds of millions of farmers worldwide. A third example is empowering farmers with training or access to capital to become more resilient through rainwater harvesting. We've been engaging with the Arab Gulf Program for Development, and I'm pleased to say that this week they've announced an investment to advance scaling of rainwater harvesting techniques in the Sahel. We're partnering with Nyala, a farmers' cooperative in Kenya, to help other cooperatives adopt an innovative loan product pioneered by Nyala to help farmers become more resilient by investing in rainwater harvesting tanks. This approach increased take-up of loans to purchase tanks tenfold, increasing milk sales to the dairy, increasing girls' secondary school or school attendance, all with very high repayment rates. Why these particular innovations? The Innovation Commission selected innovations ready to scale based on 3 characteristics. First, rigorous evidence of causal impact, typically from experimental studies, such as randomized controlled trials. This includes evidence that the innovation itself works and that the method of scaling or promoting adoption also works. This allows us to be confident that investments will have real impacts for people and the planet. Second, careful cost-effectiveness analysis. We quantify costs and benefits to farmers, consumers, and the environment using a consistent methodology across innovations. Third, reaching a large number of people is a prerequisite for having a large impact. So we investigated whether innovations had a credible pathway to scale, for example, through government services or through the market. We're also looking at earlier stage innovations. Early stage research can have a huge return. The estimated social return for public investment in research and development is 55%, a phenomenal rate of return relative to most other investments. We've identified highly promising innovations, some of which could be transformational. To take one example, microbial fertilizers, which use bacteria to facilitate crops' absorption of nutrients, can increase yields and replace synthetic fertilizers, which account for 2 to 5% of global CO2 emissions, as well as causing local environmental degradation. Microbial fertilizers are already being used at scale in Brazil and the US and have been selected as an Aim for Climate innovation sprint. Investing in testing to adapt microbial fertilizer for low and lower middle income countries could both increase yields and reduce emissions. This is already underway in Kenya. It's great to be here today with so many partners committed to innovation at the intersection of climate change, food security, and agriculture. The Commission has already identified 15 high-return innovations, and we're continuing to develop this list. If there are any governments, practitioners, innovators, or funders who are interested in helping to scale these innovations, we'd be very happy to talk. We look forward to working closely with all of you to further develop and scale innovations and reach hundreds of millions of farmers. Thank you.
Nailed it. Dr. Kremer. Thank you, Dr. Kremer, for the partnership, to you and the Commission for all the thinking you did this year in partnership with the COP28 presidency and with our Aim4C partners. Let's continue our conversation into another direction and to have a discussion to hear a little bit more about scaling from some other partners, specifically hearkening back to COP26 and also looking forward a bit to COP30. So we have the privilege of having two distinguished leaders with us today. Please welcome the Right Honourable Minister Andrew Mitchell for the United Kingdom's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office to the stage, as well as Corina Pimenta, the National Secretary of Bioeconomy from Brazil. And as they approach, I'd also like to welcome Dr. Ismahan El-Wafi, Executive Managing Director of the CGIAR, who will serve as our moderator for this panel. Great to see you again. Thank you. Please. Pleasure to meet you. Welcome. Feel most welcome.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Thank you. Please have a seat. Whatever you want. I don't mind. In the middle. Okay. Thank you very much, Chris. And thanks to all the speakers that we had the pleasure to hear today. Thank you, Michael, for that presentation that clarified further the Commission and what innovation we have really to focus on. Good evening, everyone. It's really an absolute pleasure to be here moderating this important conversation on scaling innovation in climate-smart agriculture from COP26 to COP30 and beyond. Minister Mitchell, thank you very much for joining us. Secretary Karina, I like very much the fact that I have the two country representatives, but also I have a gender balance. So I have a male minister and a female secretary. So we are eager to hear your insight on the path from COP26 to COP30. and discuss how we can collectively sustain momentum to scale up really innovation in the agri-food system. We just heard from Michael Kramer about the value of innovation of climate change. He gave us examples, and he went into examples beyond the normal ones to rainwater harvesting, for example, fertilizer, genetic improvement, and what have you. So what innovation you are the most excited about? And how do you see your country taking leadership in pushing forward investment in agriculture R&D to benefit hundreds of millions of farmers?
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much to the COP for inviting me to be part of this panel, and it's a great pleasure once again to be working with you. And it's a huge pleasure to be working with Brazil on a whole series of different things, but in particular the new science partnership with Brazil, which I and your ministerial colleague, Minister Dias, announced at the British Global Food Security Summit in London. And indeed, we did a joint op-ed in the newspapers to celebrate that as well. So there's a very close relationship on the issue of food and agriculture with Brazil, and I celebrate that today. And the UK, as far as the COP is concerned, the UK is a lead in the agricultural breakthrough to promote priority actions, and I'm very pleased indeed that we have that opportunity. At the Global Food Security Summit, we set out to answer the question, supported by countries all around the world, and in a joint effort which was launched by our Prime Minister in the UK and by the President of Somalia, that in a world where there's plenty of food, it is absurd that there are children who starve to death in East Africa. And that's why your question seems to me to be so very, very relevant. What do we do to stop something that is entirely unnecessary from taking place before our eyes at the moment? And innovation and invention is incredibly important. I think back to the £500,000 grant from the British taxpayer to Vodafone, which led to M-Pesa, which has been a huge boon to millions and millions of people across Africa, and also particularly to farmers as well. And I think back to other innovations as well, like the sweet potato that was invented by British science in order to grow in a seed that could grow in very arid, climate-challenged land, and which is today feeding millions of people across Africa. And rolling on, I think, too, of the organization CAVEX, which is about how you link companies which want to set aside their carbon with farmers living in very poor parts of the world. And the same guy who invented M-Pesa is also inventing and driving forward this CAVEX exchange, which I think we will hear a great deal about. And again, to your question about research and how you drive this agenda forward, as far as Britain is concerned, at a time when there have been significant cuts in the past in the ODA budget that Britain has, we've never cut the research budget. Indeed, we spend about £300 million a year on research, and over the next 2 years, I'm pleased to say that will rise to nearly £500 million. So I think that is really important as well. And to the CGIAR, which is doing so much brilliant work, we really are enormously impressed. It's why the Prime Minister announced here at the COP that we would add another £45 million to the work that CGIAR is doing. That will take us to £110 million. £5 million of that support is to the US Vision for Adapted Crops and Soils. Another £5 million is to support the Crop Trust Endowment Fund. So, all of this, I hope, points in the right direction. Over 100 million people in farming families are now eating bio-fortified food. And one of the saddest sights you ever see in Africa is food that is badly needed lying rotting alongside the road or beside the fields. I had the great pleasure of visiting just a week or so ago, an extraordinary organization just south of London called CABI. And CABI is the Centre for Agricultural and Biosciences International. And it is an organization which operates in 34 countries, and it's designed to tackle that 40% of food that lies rotting. It looks at the bug infestation, it looks at other infestations which stop food growing or degrade food. It takes it and analyzes it all across the developing world and then seeks to put it right. And I must say, of all the visits I've done recently, it was one of the most interesting and most inspiring. So that's a slightly long answer to your very focused question, but I hope it gives a feeling for the area in which we're operating.
No, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, Minister Mitchell. Thank you very much for bringing very vivid examples and to showcase really an example outside, which is Vodafone, how much we invest and how much we can get out. And I would like just to remind us all that the ag sector, particularly in international developments, it's one of the best areas to invest in for a really end hunger and reduce poverty. Thank you very much. And CABI is a great example of an institution that go beyond science to really innovation in finance, whereby they are financing research through publication. Over to you, Secretary Karina. Which innovation excites you the most and you see us really focusing on in the next few years?
Okay, thank you very much for being here. First of all, good to see you again.
Thank you, Karina.
We have these discussions quite a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And also thank you to be with the UK, our great partner, an increasing partnership with Brazil. So before I go to innovation, I have to thank again for the cooperation and increase support to the development of Brazil in this new government and this partnership. Including many instruments, including the Amazon Fund support with a generous contribution that is helping us support innovation, bioeconomy, and many other actions that we are doing in order to establish this transition to a modern, to a economy that's using our forest as a sense of natural capital and not only using the natural resources as we have done. I would like to talk about what excites me most because I'm in the bioeconomy sector, and this is a huge agenda in Brazil, and it's engaging many companies, many sectors, the academy, the civil society, and we are all looking into that as an important pathway so that deforestation and the threats to our nature find different paths, economic ways into conserving the forest and actually promoting the sustainable use of forests and biodiversity as a means to secure that deforestation goes down, and we keep track on our promises here, commitments here of zero deforestation by 2030, but also that we can create economies that will reach the poorest, we reach the vulnerable communities that are now protecting and guarding our forests and that need support and a network of support in order to be able to engage in an economic that is nature-based process. So when we talk about that, the construction of the policy is looking, of course, at innovation in the heart of it, because we need to add value to products, as many of the innovations were said here in food, in functional food, and the systems, in cosmetics, in pharma. We have so much knowledge about the biodiversity that we have across the country, not only in the Amazon as we think about first, but actually we have 6 different biomes in Brazil, and each of them has its richness, and that's connected to not only biodiversity, but then the knowledge of people on how to use and manage biodiversity, our social biodiversity. So that's interesting for me in terms of putting forward policy making that will help us engage companies and sectors into using our genetic heritage as a piece of biotechnology and bioinnovation for different segments, including food. And also another perspective that for us is very important is as a continental country with the increasing need to have that innovation to reach to farmers and to small farmers and to indigenous peoples and to traditional communities. This provokes us to think differently, not only about the invention itself, but how we distribute and how we invent it jointly with communities and how we do this both way side, because we can learn and academy learns a lot. Centers of research learns a lot from communities and the other way around. So this is kind of in the heart of the bioeconomy policy, how we can create these networks to flow technology and knowledge and innovation through the different regions. And that, for Brazil, who has other social policies and economic policies, like in the health sector and cultural sector, we are able to reach out to the different regions with like universal policies. That's the challenge that we have. How can we make innovation universally distributed, that we can reach out to the millions of farmers and communities in the way that they can use and adequate their systems? And on the other hand, how can we learn from them and use these into value chains that will add to food, nutritious, health, and sustainable elements, and that can create new value chains and help us diversify our agriculture. And this is what excites me. We also have technologies, of course, in Brazil, in the agriculture system, that it's the engines of our economy, and we have established already this network. So we are very eager to learn from this network to engage in these other perspectives of development, of innovation across
Thank you very much, Karina. And that's a great example to show how a country is tackling it and bringing together all the knowledge from indigenous to local to advanced with the bioeconomy lenses, which means we use biological processes to really grow our economy. Back to you, Minister Mitchell. I mean, COP26 started talking about agri-food system. You launched both AIM for Climate with the UAE and the US. You launched a breakthrough report. And we have seen a really wonderful spotlight on the agri-food system in this COP28. So where do you see it going forward to Brazil? And what are some of the moments that you cherish, that you have gone through this last week, that you see it as milestone, very important, as we are moving agri-food system central in the discussion around the climate crisis?
Well, I think that a personal highlight was being part of the events at the World Climate Action Summit and seeing for the first time ever that this COP has placed the future of agriculture at the heart of climate efforts. I think that was the direct answer to your question. And I welcome the COP28 UAE Declaration on Food Systems, endorsed by 34 leaders this week, including the UK. And science and innovation is essential. We need to underline that at every possible moment. I think the commitments to coordinate R&D, for example, in novel fertilizers, to also including the sharing of knowledge and lessons between governments, the Priority Action Plan, which represents the collective ambitions of 17 countries to advance progress towards the agriculture breakthrough goal. These are all very good and important innovations which should excite us all. I just want to underline, I think, the challenge that we face. When I was in Niger earlier this year before the coup, I saw for the poorest people in one of the poorest countries in the world, that the agricultural land was being rolled back by desertification to the tune of the equivalent of 400 football pitches a day. And that is the scale of the problem we were up against. But also, I remember some years ago going to Karamoja in northern Uganda, where there was deep and profound food insecurity. But because of the work we did with the World Food Programme, we were able, over a period of time, to transform the position where over 2 million people were dependent upon food assistance to build up the agricultural resources that they were able to use. So we increased by $5 the amount per head that was being spent a year, from $20 to $25, and as a result of that, we were able to ensure that there was teaching about irrigation, animal husbandry, the reservoiring of water, ensuring that there was proper water retention, the building of feeder roads, the providing of cold storage. And over a period of 2 to 3 years, for that extra $5, we were able to remove off food subsistence something like half of those 2 million people. Now, it's gone backwards and forwards since then, but I think that's a sort of very encouraging way of looking at all of this. So those are my key moments here, but also the underlying things that I've seen which make me so concerned about this area.
Thank you. So over to you, Karina. How do you see this focus on agri-food system moving toward next year and then the year after in Brazil?
Well, I think in Brazil we have maybe 3 challenges ahead of us, and I think we are defining different strategies for that. It is important to highlight that we are investing and having partners investing also together in reaching our NDC of 12 million hectares of restoration. And this means a lot of technology in terms of seeing agricultural change. And it will, part of this will be productive, regenerative agriculture. And for that, it challenges us on our current system how to create channels to sell and to distribute all these products. So the development of these value chains you will see happening. We just announced it with BNDES, our National Bank for Development, $200 million from partners in a fund to support small farmers in the arch of deforestation, exactly to create a barrier on the advancement of deforestation in Brazil. So these are kind of the things that I hope when COP30 will come, you'll be able to see great experiences of implementation of many systems of agroforestry, agroecological across the Amazon and other regions in Brazil. And I think this is one of the things that I hope will scale up in the next couple of years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Both examples are very important. Minister Mitchell, I mean, we heard during these days on the importance of finance, and I think both Minister Vilsack and Minister Lemhiri talked about it. We know that ACT takes only about 4% of the international investment, climate finance. So how do we push it forward? How do you see it really sustaining this interest of agri-food system as part of the solution to climate crisis? And how do we go from the 4% to 10% to hopefully a larger percentage? So where do you see, I know that we are very grateful to the UK and your investment are great in science and innovation through CGR and others. How do you see UK taking leadership in moving that climate finance from a focus on energy to a focus on energy and agri-food system and other sectors?
Well, we certainly need to raise our ambition in the way that you have described, and it's why Brazil and the UK will significantly strengthen our scientific collaboration on food security and resilient agriculture. We're doing it in a whole series of ways. One of the ways that we have recently announced in the British government's white paper, which is a document designed to address the question of how we get the SDGs back on track at this halfway point where they're way off, and also how we ratchet in a huge amount more of finance through sweating the assets of the multilateral development banks, but in other ways as well. And this white paper, which is available online and which I commend to those who have an interest in these matters, it tries to chart how you change the international financial system to deliver far more on all these objectives. And the Global Food Security Summit, which I referred to, which is very directly seeking to corral support and galvanize effort into this area, is an example of the way we do development differently these days. It's an example of the way you crowd in science and artificial intelligence and research and technology and the centers of expertise that we are setting up to drive all these things forward. It's designed to make it clear that it's not just about money, although money is incredibly important. It's about the way in which you direct that money. And if the British white paper, which I've described, is about how we do development differently, then the Global Food Security Summit is an example of that. But we're looking forward to working seamlessly with Brazil, including on the G20, of course, that is coming up, and driving forward these noble objectives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Mitchell. And I was a witness to that Global Food Security Summit in London. That was really an appetizer to what we are seeing here in COP28 with a focus on science and innovation. Finally, to close with you, Karina. So I attended a presentation a few days ago by William Hurley, and he said that we have only about 0.1% scientists in the planet. So if we need solution and innovation, is that enough? And definitely it's not enough. And one of his ideas that I love is that we need to bring kids, our kids, the young generation as scientists, because they are able to create much more than we do. They are not yet modeled in a certain way of thinking. So thinking about science and innovation, and now Karina yourself is a scientist, how would Brazil, through COP30, help Brazil, of course, and you gave a few examples, but also spread the knowledge using South-South collaboration, South-South triangular cooperation, and other methodologies, and using COP30?
Wow. There are different angles to each. I really like that you brought the issue of youth into that, because for me, the response to science that you said, that the low number of scientists, is that you have to work with youth. And for us, this is the centerpiece of our strategy there. And you see that reflected on COP30 for sure, because we are engaging with the different movements here on youth, looking at Brazil COP30 as a milestone in their journey into making their way into into building this new economy. So I think this is one important piece. I think in COP30 we are, everybody's talking about COP30, yeah?
Yeah. People are excited about it going to Brazil.
I know. It will be a great experience and a very different one, and because we will see nature, and I do hope that for us it's kind of a very important milestone, that you not only see the results of reducing in deforestation there, because you can see deforestation, you can feel it, you can feel in the air when it's there, but you can also see these emergent economies of use of our natural resources, of the cities, of entrepreneurship growing in the cities. So we are preparing many instruments so that can be seen as a pathway, and it's a milestone because we have to think further. But I think it's a milestone for us that you can see, you can learn, you can experience this variety of things, not only in food, but you can experiment the culture, you can experiment the culture and the richness of our conservation units and all these things. So I think it will be a cohort of things that you'll be able to see there, and lots of results on the different matters.
On the ground with the different biocom, as you call them, yeah?
Yes, the different bioeconomies, those more social side, those more biotechnology. We'll see many things in Belém. The state of Pará is doing a great job into advancing in their bioeconomy plan, the first state to have one, and it's the first year of implementation, and you already see results. And I think in 2 years' time, the federal government and other will be able to showcase some of the right pathways for that.
Thank you very much, Secretary Karina. Thank you very much, Minister Mitchell. It's really a pleasure to see a number of initiatives being spurred by different presidency, but they are talking to each other. They are working together. They are complementing each other. And I think really the path towards Brazil, one of the largest agricultural country, can show us if we can move towards sustainability. It's going to be a case where we could see things on the ground. It's wonderful to have this discussion with you. I wish it wouldn't stop right now, but it's good to see continuity from COP26 to COP30 and beyond. And I hope throughout this path, we will have agri-food system central and front in the discussion in the climate crisis and in having a better world for all of us, leaving no one behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our panelists. Thank you very much. They left us on this idea of needing to engage with youth, not only for its own sake, but also for the sake of science, and specifically for the sake of bringing science into the domain of food systems. So we'd like to give the last word to one of the future leaders, the future generation. So please join me in welcoming Sarah Badran, International Youth Climate Delegate here at COP28. Sarah, please.
Your Excellencies and esteemed guests, as we conclude the thematic days and this great session, I am honored to deliver the closing remarks. This COP has not only refined the parameters when it comes to discourse on food systems, but has also elevated them from the margins to the forefront of the COP agenda. Recognizing that food systems are not only a major contributors when it comes to greenhouse gas emissions, but the backbone of livelihoods and lives. Through these days, we have witnessed action on multiple fronts, addressing the different crucial implementation factors, from the enabling policies, financing, innovation, and knowledge transfer. The COP28 UAE Declaration on Sustainable Agriculture, Resilient Food Systems, and Climate Action shows a significant political commitment, as it is endorsed by 152 countries so far. And this was complemented by the launch of innovation hubs, alliances, funding partnerships throughout the past 2 weeks. Initiatives like Aim for Climate, which has successfully raised over $17 billion and was launched during COP26, highlight the important commitment when it comes to investing and supporting innovations in food systems and climate-smart agriculture. Smallholder farmers deserve our support today, and we must invest in local and global research and development innovation that fits their needs. As we stand at this midpoint, we are looking forward to COP30 in Brazil, anticipating the scaling of innovations and collaboration to provide technical assistance to low and middle-income countries. And when we talk about food system transformation, the roles of youth and women cannot be overstated. They are the driving force behind food systems being more resilient, sustainable, inclusive, ensuring food accessibility, affordability, and safety for everyone. Our commitment to collaboration and creation is evident in negotiation rooms, laboratories, farms, innovation hubs, and multiple other places. The wealth of curiosity and creativity at our disposal empowers us not only to embrace technology and knowledge transfer, but to innovate solutions that resonate to our unique environments and cultures. The commitment is not just an aspiration, but an economic imperative, essential for fostering regenerative economies. Looking ahead, we call for a dialogue between generations and the diverse stakeholders spanning the entire supply chain. This dialogue aims to facilitate the sharing of best practices, emphasizing collaboration that extend beyond working for farmers, but with farmers. It is a call to bridge sectors, fostering the seamless transition of research and academia to the public and private spheres. This approach is effective and essential to address the challenges and fulfill the dynamic demands in the complex landscape when it comes to agriculture. And to truly address the climate crisis and derive co-benefits from climate action, we must enable science-based and data-driven decision-making, conserving nature and biodiversity while enhancing livelihoods. Therefore, by empowering agriculture and making it part of the solution, we are paving the way for a sustainable future. And now, as we part ways with the hope of reconvening next year, let us carry this momentum forward, turning our shared vision into a reality. The achievements we envision are not just hopes, words. They are the promises we make to the world and the generations to come. Let us meet again in COP29, celebrating the realization of our shared goals when it comes to food system transformation and resilience. Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for sharing this time with us this afternoon. Thank you for being here on this critical day, the COP28 agenda for the world, as we seek to elevate this critical agenda with food systems, agriculture, and climate action. Thank you for the partnership, specifically around the Aim4C platform. And finally, thanks to the panelists for your energy and passion that you bring to this space. I'd like to officially draw this session to a close, and I look forward to engaging with you over the course of the next year and the years to come as we all work towards making this agenda come to life. Thank you very much.